Shibbolei Aleket. Anybody know what the Shibbolei Aleket is? No? Okay. Raise your hands, you know. Hold on one second. I'll put this on the screen for you guys. Okay. Now, this is, there's a minhag of staying up all night on Hoshana Rabbah. They probably do it in yeshiva also. Now, when I was younger, I did not appreciate this. There's always some mashgiach type in the yeshiva who basically insists that all the bachers stay up all night on Hoshana Rabbah and or Shavuot. Now, it's a good thing we mentioned the Rambam. The Rambam would say, he was lived before these minhagim were even, I guess, imagined. And, you know, the Rambam says you're supposed to sleep at night. And you're supposed to sleep good sleep at night, and you're not supposed to sleep during the day. Stay healthy. And you know what jet lag feels like. The Rambam never had, jet lag wasn't a possibility in times of the Rambam. But you know that basically if you force someone to stay up all night, you're basically throwing off his internal rhythms. I find staying up all night worse than fasting. I would rather, if you give me a choice, 7 Yom Kippurs or staying up all night, I'd take 7 Yom Kippurs. Especially the ones like yesterday, Baruch Hashem, it was an easy fast. Shouldn't say they should always be like that, but Baruch Hashem, it went okay. Had to take care of a lot of people, had a lot of responsibilities, so it went well. And you understand, for some people, staying up all night is not fun, especially if we don't get a chance to sleep during the day. Even then, we can't force ourselves to sleep during the day so that we will be able to sleep at night. It just doesn't work. You know, it's like eating a lot of extra food so that you could fast later. Does anybody really pig out before Yom Kippur? You try to eat. Okay, as a young man, you could do this. Do you think grown men are capable of, by grown men, I mean mature grown men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, do they have the capacity to just eat before Yom Kippur and then fill up, drink 3 liters of water, and they're good to go for Yom Kippur? You can't. You just have to eat like a mensch and hope it'll get you through the fast. So staying up all night is an awkward thing. When I was a teenager, I first heard that they announced, I remember it was Haskell Yadlovker of blessed memory, a neighbor of ours, on that, I guess it was the second to last day of Chol Hamoed, announced at Mincha, and as people left from Arv, he says, at 9 p.m. tonight at Shul, they're going to be reading Sefer Devarim. That's the minhag. They stand up, they take out a Sefer Torah, they read all of Sefer Devarim straight. Have you been to one of these things where they did it? Okay, so I've seen people do this. And I thought to myself, oh, Rabbi Cohen, the mashgiach at Yeshiva, Yeshiva University High School for Boys, is always telling guys to marbish sedra. That's what it sounded like to us. You meant mavir sedra. Mavir sedra. It sounded like marbish sedra. And that means to study the parsha, read the parsha twice, and read the Targum once. Or read Rashi used to tell us. They even mentions, I think in the Ramah also, it's a b'diavad, you could also read Rashi. Go over the parsha. And I was thinking, oh, they're reading Sefer Devarim, I guess, for the good of all those who need to catch up on their parsha. You know, I remember even Ray Kirschenbaum joked about this. This is like the hardest thing if you're studying Talmud all the time. You don't want to interrupt and have to read the parsha. So he really appreciated that type of leap year where every single parsha is divided. We don't have any double parshas. Says then you could do your sedras like a mensch. You know, you have really enough time, you could do it right. So they're catching up. And I thought it was, that's what I thought it was. And then you get older, you go to yeshiva, and they tell you, no, there's minhagim, you stay up all night and learn. There's a tikkunim, it's a Kabbalistic thing. And you read Sefer Devarim, I guess nowadays they've, like Dr. England says, this rule, they've created, what do they do? They've created a new culture, new minhagim. Why Sefer Devarim, for whatever it is, has this power. I don't know what they say about it. But you eventually look and you find that the source of this practice of reading Sefer Devarim that night says exactly what my Havamina was. That it was basically a Baal Batish custom. Why? Why are they reading Devarim just then? Because the night of Hoshana Rabbah, it's going to be Shmini Atzeres the next day, and then the next day is Simchas Torah. They're finishing the Torah reading, so you have to catch up by then. So it says in the Shibbolei Haleket. Who's the Shibbolei Haleket? It was one of the Anavim, this family called, it should be Anawim. The humble, that's what their last name was. It was Tzidkiyahu ben Avram Anav, and he wrote the Shibbolei Haleket sometime in the mid-13th century. And it records minhagim, shtickle Torahs from the Roman community, central Italy. Like the Aruch is also Roman, Jews have been living in basically Rome for even the early Roman Empire. Well, yeah, the Italki. Don't forget, it was the Romans who destroyed the Second Temple. There were Jews living in Rome, large Jewish community in Rome, in late Second Temple times, before the whole animosity and eventually destruction of the temple. Todos Ish Romi was the prominent Roman, the Jew, who at the times of the temple was having people basically do a gedima kulas, which is they were roasting whole lambs and goats. It looked like a korban pesach. Chazal said to him, "You can't do that. It looks like you're doing kudsh and bachutz. You're doing it looks like a sacrifice beyond the temple. But what are you going to do? You're such a prominent fellow." Which is, by the way, even the Rambam says there still is a rule. You're not allowed to do a gedima kulas. Whether or not there's just a minute, let's say you just roast your meat, but it's obviously not a whole lamb. So that depends on local minhag. So the Shibbolei Leket brings over here, which we're going to see now. He brings this custom. Okay. Let's read what they say they do on Hoshana Rabbah. He says here, Yom Chamishi Yom Arava Omer Vayom Shishi V'Meshvi. This is the 5th day of Chol Moed in Chutz La'aretz. There are 2 days of Yontif, so the 5th day of Chol Moed is day 7. So the Torah reading is for you mentioned the Shishi and the Shvi, as they do when they read the Torah in Chutz La'aretz on Sukkot. Yom Arava Lachar Tfilat Musafim Yim Mamshechim Et Haaron Be'emtza Beit HaKnesset V'Yish Motzin Kol Sefrei Torot V'Osin Kemin Goren Agula Be'emtza Beit HaKnesset U'Matchila Chazan V'Omer Hoshana V'Atzibur Omnin Acharav U'Makifin Sheva Pamim. Basically, make room in the shul because they're going to have 7 hakafas. Why is this important? Because even in the times of the Gonim, in the early Rishonim, the minhag of hakafos was relatively new. It's something that developed naturally. Chazal didn't talk about making hakafas on Sukkot in the shul. Chazal talk about how they used to do hakafas in the mizbeach. And all these later minhagim are just that, later minhagim that developed naturally. Okay. And then it says here, Vomer alpha beta achat b'chol pam. This piyutim, the Hoshanas, are alphabetical acrostics, as you can see. Usually, the Sephardic versions, the Ashkenazic versions. The Ashkenaz versions are a lot more complex. They have some minhag, which ones you say, which ones you don't, depending on the year and the cycle. The Sephardim have it much easier. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. And the Vilna Gaon endorses, by the way, the Sephardic minhag, which is no hakafas on Shabbos. So whatever day of Sukkot is Shabbos, no hakafas, period. Whereas the Ashkenazic standard practice is there's hakafas for Shabbos, just you don't hakafa, you say just the piyutim, the Om Nitzura, and you know what I'm talking about. It's in the Machzer. The Vilna Gaon says none of it on Shabbos. And the Sephardim also, none of it on Shabbos. Why? What's the reason ostensibly for this? You should wash those vegetables, by the way. I didn't wash them yet. Okay, and there's a sharper knife in the kitchen. So why does he say not to do it? Basic reason, because we don't have a lulav, an esrog on Shabbos. The whole point of hakafas is to mimic what they did in the temple. In the temple, they always had their lulav and esrog every single day that they were doing this. So if you don't have lulav and esrog because you're following the rabbinic enactment not to do lulav and esrog on Shabbos, so there's no reason to have hakafas. Okay. So he says here, Machzirin et Aaron, V'achar Machzirin et Aaron, O Sefrat Torah, when Kuman V'Sayim Kol Shanoth Keseder Dikatuv Machzirin V'Kadish Gamor. And then they put this Torah back and they say Kaddish Diskabel, and they go on. Uminag L'Hadlik, he was talking about the day of Hoshana Rabbah. What about the night before? Uminag L'Hadlik, Kohani wrote Shebeveit HaKnesset L'chvod HaTorah. Light up the shul, light all the candles in shul in honor of the Torah. Al Shem Ki Ner Mitzvah V'Torah Or. Right? Like I said, Ner Mitzvah and Torah Or, so light a lot of candles. Ve'yeshinogim B'Leil Yom HaRava. Some of the minhag, the night of Yom HaRava, which is what he calls which we call Hoshana Rabbah. Liyoth Ni Orin Kol HaLayla. Some are up all night. Why? V'yoshvin v'oskim b'Torah. They sit and they busy themselves with Torah. U'marchilim b'Reshith v'olchin ad v'zot bracha. They study from Bereshis until V'zos bracha. Go through the entire Torah. Lefi shev'yom ha'machorat. Why do they do this? Stay up all night, study Bereshis to the end of the Devarim. Why? Because the next day, tzrichin lahashmina Torah. Next day, Simchas Torah. That's the end of the Torah reading cycle. Ve'im yesh mi shelo histir parashiotav. So if you have some unfortunate fellow who did not histir, he didn't go through his parshas all year. Okay, Ima tzibur, with the tzibur, they were reading. They had a 1-year cycle. Every week they read a parsha. Kol echad ve'echad b'shabbatah. Every parsha in its week. Harehu sodran ata. Okay, so now he has a chance to catch up. So this is the source. Shiboy Leket says at the beginning, to say, to stay up all night, it's great, stay all night. No, they're staying all night. Why? Exactly as the Havamina was, because they need to catch up on their parshas, because Simchas Torah is around the corner. They're not going to stay up all night. Shmini Atzeres, they can't light more candles. So you already have to. It's like Shmini Atzeres is basically a Shabbos, so you can't do that. So this is the last weeknight, so you got to stay up. You got to catch up on your parshas, and there it is. And this whole practice here, this is the source for it. Nowadays, I remember there was one Sephardic Rav here in the community who basically put a stop to the Hoshana Rabbah staying up all night thing. So it causes more damage. It's not healthy, whatever it was. And they didn't want him to be in the shul anymore because, that's something they do. It's part of their culture. How could you say not to stay up all night on Hoshana Rabbah? It's the thing. And they have programs in yeshiva now. And like I said, they guilt trip good, fine students who are just trying to keep to their Siddharim and stay healthy. Say, oh, you're not staying up all night on Hoshana Rabbah. How could you, And if I were in charge of a yeshiva currently, which I'm not, I would also, I would at least defend those guys who don't want to participate in these types of things, which are extreme and not based on anything in Chazal and have strange sources. It was basically this: just I don't need to catch up on my parshas, thank God. So don't make me stay up all night. What are you going to do? I do believe that for certain balabatim, staying up all night on Shavuot and Hoshana Rabbah is good. You know why? Because they're never learning anyways. There's some people, Bekoshi, you have to drag them into the base medrash. This balabas actually shows up on Shavuos night from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. He's actually doing something that's considered Torah study. So that's good. At least 6 hours a year he should get to study some Torah. So that's good. But for yeshiva bachers, it's not the best thing.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.